that over to Ms Lambert to take us through the paper, please.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. You will all have been formally advised by email from the Chief Executive that he received the resignation of Mrs von Dadelszen as a councillor for the Hastings constituency in order for her to take up a position with the Environment Court as a Commissioner. The Local Electoral Act prescribes how Council deals with a situation such as this when there's an extraordinary vacancy arise. The first thing that is that by-election is excluded because we're within 12 months of the next local body election, so that effectively leaves Council with two options, and you have to make a decision. It can't be left unresolved, but the two options effectively are to resolve that the vacancy not be filled, or resolve to make an appointment, and in both cases, or whichever option you choose, your decision has to be publicly notified. If you choose not to fill the vacancy, then we give public notice to that effect, and that's really the end of that matter until you confirm that in the minutes at the next available meeting. If you choose, however, to fill the vacancy, we give public notice, and then has to come back to Council for confirmation of an appointment within 30 days of public notification. So, for example, if it was to be publicly notified this week, it would have to be confirmed by you either at the Council meeting on the 10th of June or at the Council meeting on the 26th of June. But either would be suitable. In terms of, again, the who you could who you could appoint, the Act is quite wide in that regard. The person has to be a New Zealand citizen who was a parliamentary elector, and so it does not have to be a previous candidate to any local body elections, but they cannot be a sitting district or city councillor within Hawke's Bay. So those are the only people that are actually excluded from your consideration around who, if any, person you may appoint to fill the vacancy. There is no set criteria within the Act for what considerations you need to give to who could be the most suitable appointment. The convention, as I've stated in the paper, is the next highest polling unsuccessful candidate, but it is not, I repeat, it's not a requirement. And so it's really, it gives you quite broad scope to decide who or what you wish to do in this regard, and then we go through the public notification process. There's one other factor that's arisen because of Mrs von Dadelszen's resignation, and that's she was the chairman of the Corporate and Strategic Committee. There's two further scheduled meetings of this committee between now and the council elections in October, so it would probably be appropriate for you to make an appointment to the chairmanship of that committee for those remaining two meetings. So I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Gilbertson.
Yeah, just a clarification. If we don't appoint another councillor, that's effectively the salary is $45,000. That's about $15,000 roughly, because it's four months out of 12, isn't it? And plus the expenses of printing, meeting schedules, blah blah blah. Does that $15,000 odd stay? That return that stays as a credit in the council accounts. That doesn't get distributed in any other way. So that's effectively a cost saving to the council. Is that correct?
Yes, I'll get Paul to answer that.
Yes, Councillor. It will be. The provision in the budget will be 15,000 higher than the expenditure, so it will be a saving.
Thank you. So just to clarify, we couldn't make an appointment, a formal appointment, if we choose to do that until sometime in June, either early June or late June.
Yeah, so the first opportunity you would have is the 10th of June. Yeah.
So therefore, the nominations for this coming election open at the end of July, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to move, Mr Chairman, that we do not proceed to fill the vacancy, recommendation 2, either option. Yes, thanks, Mr Chairman. In looking at this, the thing that occurred to me immediately on receiving notice of Councillor von Dadelszen's departure, and I would comment that this is a councillor who's performed exceedingly well over a very long period of time, and I think we should consider how we honour that position at some point. But moving on to this current resolution, it's my view, Mr Chairman, that we're very close to an election. We're in effect in election mode, and I think it would be remiss of this council and against a long-standing convention to proceed to appoint a councillor for a very short space of time. Really, the opportunity is there for the public to decide. This is a public decision to make, to appoint someone to council, and it's what we'd have effectively is a councillor appointed who without the mandate that's needed from the public. So I'm really suggesting that we're in a position so close to an election that to proceed would be remiss and, if you like, would be an interference with the democratic process if councillors around this table, thus a few councillors around this table, were to decide what the best outcome was by way of representation to council. I'll leave it at that, Mr Chairman. There'll be others obviously who want to speak and contribute.
Chairman, just to reiterate the points that have already been made by Councillor Curtin, I believe that at this stage we are very close to an election. Indeed, there's been nominations or indications of declarations of candidacy have already been made, and prospective candidates already jockeying for positions. I believe that at this point we leave it to the public, the voting public, to decide who's going to represent this council over the next 3 years or whatever. We've already had an indication or an objection from one declared candidate, and that is Mr Barker in the Dominion, who believes, and I believe quite rightly, that this would disadvantage him, and I think that the proper course for this council to take is to stand back from this process and leave it to the voters in 4 months' time to make their decision.
Okay, I'll take an opportunity to speak. Excuse me. I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm a little confused with the issue that you raised, because we're not talking about next term of council. We're talking about this term of council. If we stick to convention and the next highest polling candidate does come up, and I'll be very clear, you either vote for him or we don't have anyone. The people of Hastings at the moment don't have their full complement of councillors. Next term is next term. What happens next term will be decided at the polls in October. People that are making noise at the moment about they wish to stand, there's no nominations been accepted or in the system yet, because obviously we're a couple of months shy of that time. I think the people of Hawke's Bay have made a choice last year, and the candidate in question, Mr Murray Douglas, was part of that process. He missed out by 109 votes. The people have made a choice. They wanted 9 people to represent their interests with the regional council, and quite simply the moot here is we bring an extra set of eyes to the table to help us with what are clearly going to be some interesting and far-reaching decisions in the near future. Council doesn't shut down, doesn't stop its work because there's people missing. We have an opportunity here to give the people of Hawke's Bay a full complement of thinking people to represent them and make decisions on their behalf. And I think at the moment it's almost self-interest to say let's not let's not appoint. So I will not be supporting this motion. Other speakers? Councillor Rose.
Mr. Chairman, I join you in not supporting this motion. I believe that there is there is 9 councillors set for this council, and when a vacancy occurs, it is our responsibility to fill that vacancy so that the people are fully represented, and particularly in Hastings, the representation which is set at 4 is filled. I believe in this at the moment. The council has a heavy workload. There's a lot of stuff before council which needs to be resolved before October, and I think the addition of another set of eyes to help us through that program of the next 4 or 5 months is important. I believe that in Mr. Douglas we have an extraordinary capable candidate to fill the vacancy. He was a close runner at the last election. He has retained his interest in the region. He has wide knowledge of the activities of council, and if he was appointed, would be able to come to this table reasonably fully informed, and I believe he would make a real contribution to this region and to the constituency of Hastings over the next 4 months. I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, that we are concerned about this term of office. We are not concerned about next term of office. There will be, I guess, a number of candidates seeking election at the next triennial elections. Some will come to that election with perceived advantages. Certainly Mr. Barker, who raised the matter in the Dominion the other day, could be construed as having considerable advantage, being an ex-cabinet minister and a long-serving politician in central government in Hawke's Bay, and that is certainly something denied to other candidates who will be opposing him at the next election. So I think that we concern ourselves with what lays before us over this term of office which we are charged to fulfil, and I believe it is fit and proper and indeed right that we fill the vacancy that is in front of us. I concur with Councillor Curtin in his opening remarks about Councillor von Dadelszen. She, in my view, was an extraordinarily capable councillor and served both the Hastings constituency and this region well. And I think we owe it to her, if nobody else, to fill the vacancy that is in front of us.
Mr. Chairman, firstly, just a couple of points. You make the point that we're concerned with the present, not the future. You could make the same point that Mr. Douglas, who was a fine gentleman, but he was nearly elected 3 years ago. So if you're talking about we're not worried about next election, we shouldn't be worried about last election. So Mr. Douglas's qualities, or otherwise, and whether he would have been elected in the future as in the past is not really relevant. The question I'd ask is, why would we fill this vacancy? And I can see no reason why we should, and a lot of reasons why we shouldn't. Mr. Douglas is a fine, a very good candidate, and he proved that in the last election. But there are no critical issues, there are no burning issues that require us to fill this vacancy. If you say that there are critical issues, I mean, you could put my mother in because she thinks it's a critical issue on feral cats. So there's a burning issue that could be addressed. So what I'm saying is that there's no requirement to put anyone in here. To say that we need more numbers is rubbish, because at any one time, especially over the winter, we have at least one of our councillors away overseas visiting grandchildren or doing something. So therefore, to say that we have to have 9 councillors is actually an absurdity. So that to me, bringing that up is not something we should be even considering. The other thing that has been brought up, I think, by yourself, is that we might have equal numbers, and if we've got 4-4, it's going to be difficult. We'll have to cast a casting vote. Well, traditionally, the casting vote is cast in favour of the status quo, and I think in the time I've been here, in the 5 or 6 years I've been here, I think we've only had a casting vote perhaps once. So I don't think that's an issue either. As I say, in the short term, there are no major issues in the next 3 or 4 months that can't be dealt with by 8 people. And the final issue is, and it's something I've harped on about for years, because we don't have a finance committee, we have a fairly laissez-faire towards expenditure. We can save $15,000 plus the cost of printing these things and the administrative cost, and $15,000 might be not be a lot to us in a $20 million, $40 million budget. But I think to the ratepayers out there to say, look, one of the issues we're looking at because we don't need to spend this money, is saving this $15,000, to me that would go down quite well with the public. And I think the public could probably tolerate 8 councillors for the next 4 months. So, as I say, why would we fill this vacancy? There are no burning issues, no reasons why we should fill it, and a lot of reasons why we shouldn't. So I will be supporting the recommendation that we do not fulfil the vacancy.